I had been awake for 19 hours when the Vathric warside Risay first cut out. That's the part nobody asks about afterward. They ask what I heard. They ask whether I was afraid. A few of the academic types ask whether I grasped the full strategic weight in real time. I tell them I was a civilian comms operator at a backwater relay installation. I was not a strategist. I understood exactly one thing in those final hours. The colony transports in my sector needed a heading, and I was the only person left who could give it to them. Let me tell you though about Vathric, briefly. They are not one civilization, split into two factions 1100 years ago, 400 of ours. Following a resource arbitration collapse their historians call the calculative schism. Both factions are machine logic cultures in the deepest sense. Not synthetic, organic, but they had, over generations, decision architecture into their social DNA. They ran every choice through an optimization cascade: war, trade, diplomacy, the location of a supply depot. Every output was binding. This is relevant because of how the war started. A Vathric row faction survey drone, operating on the outer edge of a contested mineral corridor, misfiled a single targeting coordinate. 1 digit. The drone was running a passive mapping sequence and had no weapons aboard. But the filed coordinate, when processed through the Vathric Sigma faction's shared defensive grid, read as an active targeting lock on Sigma's primary fuel depot at Jathara Station. The system flagged it. The system's optimization cascade ran the inputs, the output was. This is a first strike preparation. Counter preparation is optimal. Sigma began counter preparation. Rose sensors detected it. Rose cascade ran the inputs. The output was, Sigma is preparing a first strike. Preemption is optimal. No one gave an order. The orders came out of the math. That is what I mean when I say perfect logic machines. Not cold. Cruel. The Vathric I dealt with during routine traffic operations were courteous, precise, genuinely curious. But their architecture made certain outcomes inevitable. The way a ball placed on a frictionless slope makes a certain outcome inevitable. You do not blame the ball. You cannot stop it by arguing with it. I found all of this out later in debrief. During those 19 hours, I knew only what the relay told me. The first sign was a routing anomaly. Civilian traffic from the Jathara corridor started dropping off around hour 4 of my shift. Not dramatically, just a thinning, the kind you might attribute to a relay handoff problem, or a burst of solar interference. I logged it, ran the standard diagnostics, found nothing. The thinning continued. By hour 8, I was receiving Vathric emergency band fragments. My Vathric was functional but not fluent. Good enough for routing protocols, not good enough for rapid technical language under compression. Pieces, transit corridor, restricted access, estimated time. That word again and again, estimated. It is a word. I have since come to understand that the Vathric use the way humans use it. A placeholder for uncertainty. An acknowledgement that the cascade does not always produce a clean answer. When you hear a Vathric official say, estimated, you are hearing the rare sound of their architecture, admitting it doesn't know. In the middle of a perfect logic military escalation, estimated means, we have run the numbers and the numbers have a margin. We don't know yet. They were saying it constantly on the emergency band. Estimated engagement window. Estimated corridor closure. Estimated civilian transit termination. I started pulling the colony transport schedules. There were 11 vessels in my sector with active approach vectors. 7 bound for the Marit agricultural stations. 3 running ore contracts to the outer refinery clusters. And 1 passenger transport called the Haversin carrying 412 colonists to a new settlement on Pelin 6. The Haversin was the slow one. It had been in transit for 9 weeks and was still 5 days out from its destination. It was also, when I overlaid the estimated corridor closure data I was pulling from the Vathric emergency band, directly in the projected interdiction zone, I got on the relay. I want to be precise about what that means. Relay Station 9 was not a military installation. We had a Class 3 broadcast array, a backup antenna on the secondary mast, a 3-person crew. Though my 2 colleagues had been evac'd 6 hours earlier when the routing anomaly started looking serious. And I had stayed because somebody had to, and because leaving felt at that moment like walking away from a person who needed to hear something important. The relay was my station. The transports in my sector were listening to it. That felt, to me, like a fact with weight. I opened a continuous broadcast on the civilian emergency frequency, authentication code November 77 Relay 9, and I began feeding vectors. I gave the Haverson a new heading first. Pulled it out of the routing tables manually, cross-referenced with the corridor closure estimates I'd been logging from the Vathric band, built a deviation arc that would take them wide of the projected zone. 31 additional hours of travel time, but clear of everything I could see in the data. I read the coordinates 3 times, slowly the way the training told us to do it. Bearing, elevation offset, velocity adjustment, checkpoint identifiers. Then I moved to the ore contracts, then the agricultural vessels. The Vathric warside relay cut out at hour 11. It did not cut out with any drama. There was no burst of interference, no final transmission, no formal closure signal. One moment, the emergency band feed was cycling. Compressed Vathric, the word estimated, surfacing every 40 seconds or so, like a buoy in rough water. And then the feed was not there. The carrier frequency was still occupied. The relay itself was still present in the network handshake, but the data stopped. I sat with that for a moment. Then I went back to feeding vectors. The colony transports could hear me. I know this because 3 of them acknowledged. The Haverson sent a brief confirmation ping at hour 12, a single tone on the response channel, tangy, the kind of thing you do when you don't want to tie up the frequency, but you need the other person to know you received them. 2 of the agricultural vessels did the same. The others were either too far out for acknowledgement, or running comm silence as a precaution. Broadcasting, hour 14, hour 15, hour 16. The Vathric emergency band came back for 22 minutes at hour 17. I do not know what I was expecting. Something definitive, perhaps. A cessation announcement, or a corridor reopening signal, or even a formal closure. What I got was a single automated loop in compressed Vathric, and my translation of it, working slowly, word by word, cross-referencing against the routing protocol dictionary I had open on the secondary screen, was something like, all civilian transit in sectors 4 through 9 is suspended pending resolution of active operations. Estimated duration of suspension. The feed cut out. That was the last transmission I received from the Vathric network. The word estimated, and then the carrier frequency emptying, and then static. Not even a carrier tone, just the white hiss of a channel that used to carry something. I kept broadcasting. I don't know what the right word is for what you do when the information stops and the work doesn't. Stubbornness, maybe, or just the absence of a better option. I had the routing tables. I had the deviation arcs I'd built through the night. I had the broadcast array and the authentication code and the training that said, read the coordinates 3 times, slowly, so that the people listening can copy them down and copy them down correctly. So I read the coordinates 3 times, slowly. The last entry in the Station 9 broadcast log, I've seen it, in the documents released during the post-incident review, is timestamped at hour 10 and 41 minutes, which was approximately 4 minutes before the second evacuation team arrived and physically escorted me to the transport. The entry reads, in full, bearing 274 Mark 11, velocity hold, checkpoint Pelin approach Bravo. Estimated. I don't know if I stopped because the evacuation team came through the door. I don't know if I stopped because, after 19 hours, my voice simply ran out. The log shows only the word, incomplete, and then the silence that comes after a broadcast channel is closed. They found all 11 transports. The Haverson made Pelin 6 with 412 passengers. The ore contracts reached their clusters. 7 of the agricultural vessels made Moret Station. The 8th was delayed and arrived 40 hours later. I am told the deviation arc I gave them worked. The Vathric calculative schism's second act has no clean ending. 2 factions reached what their diplomatic corps called a cascade suspension agreement. Not peace, not exactly. A mutual recognition that the optimization architecture had produced an outcome that neither faction's population had in fact wanted. They are still negotiating the parameters of a new arbitration framework. The mineral corridor is still contested. Fuel depot at Jatharsa station was not destroyed, which is remarkable, given everything. I think about the word estimated more than I think about any other part of those 19 hours. About the fact that a civilization built on perfect logic calculation had, in its final transmissions before the cascade swallowed the channel, been reaching for a number it could not give, an uncertainty they could not resolve, a margin the math had not closed. I had been doing the same thing all night, building arcs from incomplete data, reading coordinates into a frequency I couldn't confirm anyone was receiving, trusting that the work was the point, even without the answer. Estimated duration, estimated trajectory, estimated survival. Some calculations, it turns out, you have to keep transmitting anyway,